Hey ladies and gentlemen of the internet, Adrian here for Digital Dojos, and today we are diving in the Apple rumor mill to talk everything about the upcoming September 7th event, iPhone 14, AirPods Pro 2, Apple Watch Pro, and potentially Apple Reality Pro. Anyways, let's talk about it. It's been a while since I've dived into the Apple news and the kind of rumor mill thing, since I don't really jump into the content creation space as much nowadays. However, still a big fan of Apple products. I still use them on a daily basis, both in personal and my work life. So let's jump into what's expected to be coming out regarding that of the September 7th event. Starting off with the biggest product and the most focus and buzz will be certainly around, and that is the iPhone 14. So coming off the predecessor of the iPhone 13 lineup, what can we expect for the latest generation of iPhone from Apple? Well, of course, all the stereotypical, it's going to be faster, it's going to be better quality cameras. That goes without saying, but let's talk a little bit about what's actually going to make it new in terms of iPhone 14, at least on paper, which quite frankly, right now looking at it isn't too much. So in terms of the actual lineup, it's expected that they're going to be cutting the mini out entirely. So the smaller form factor screen size, it's going to be more of a standardized lineup where they offer iPhone 14, iPhone 14 Max, which is just a bigger screen size of the base model, iPhone 14 Pro, and iPhone 14 Pro Max. So you're going to have essentially the same screen sizes across both pros and non-pro models to make it more standard and I believe easier for the consumer at that point. I think when they started introducing all these Maxes and Pro Maxes, it kind of got a little bit more confusing for the consumer, but now you basically have the choice of, do you want the smaller screen or the bigger screen, and do you want the pro model or non-pro model? And that comes down to features, your price point, and your budget and whatnot, making it a little bit more easier with this kind of 4-model lineup. Now, speaking of what's actually going to be different in terms of design, honestly, not much. It's going to follow that same kind of design language that it's coming off of the iPhone 13 with the crazy camera arrays on the back. Of course, improving on those cameras. We're expected to see improved ultra-wide lenses, just better hardware in general, slightly bigger camera bumps and whatnot back there. But what's also notable is the FaceTime or front-facing camera improvements we're supposed to be seeing in the iPhone 14. And I think this is long overdue. I think the rear cameras have been tremendous year after year, whereas the FaceTime camera has slowly just kind of deteriorated or hasn't gotten a lot of love. And I think Apple has made it very evident that their iPhone technology is great, and they've even integrated features on macOS to use your iPhone as a webcam, yet they haven't really drastically improved the front-facing camera, which I think, again, is just long overdue. And so I'm hoping to see much needed improvements here. Outside of that, of course, the Pro models are expected to get slightly more improvements to the camera. So we're expected to see potentially up to 48 megapixels on the Pro models, as well as potentially, one of the rumors is 8K support, which wouldn't be too shocking given the kind of forward nature and how wide 4K adoption has been, to kind of start prepping for that future support of, again, 8K. The Pro models are still going to be the ones to incorporate things like ProMotion displays, like they currently do, and small changes like a completely eSIM-less design, kind of getting rid of the SIM trays in the phones to kind of allow more space for the internals, which hopefully allows for what a lot of people are saying is going to be better battery life here on the iPhone 14s. Now, there's some notable rumors about potentially integrating an always-on display, but nothing quite confirmed yet. However, one area we are probably certain to see in the iPhone 14 that's really the only noticeable main difference here is that of the new notch or lack thereof notch display. We're expected to get a notchless design, which is really going to be treated or traded in favor of what they're calling now the pill design, which is essentially that front-facing camera and that speaker grill looking more of like this pill-like shape to kind of give more of that illusion of an all full screen experience. It's not quite there yet, but it's, again, an iteration, a step above the notch. And I think we've seen a lot of phones try to do this in different ways, and this is Apple's next step to getting to whatever they envision that future of the iPhone looking like with a more seamless design. I'm personally not sure how I feel about the pill design. There's talks about iOS 16 potentially using software to kind of integrate a black bar up there to make it seem more seamless for notifications and alerts and LED statuses, but we'll have to see how that actually looks in person. The iPhone 14 is expected to start the baseline of $800 and kind of work its way up from there. And outside of that, that's the kind of notable changes. And actually getting down to the nitty gritty, what's actually discussed right now is that the iPhone 14 and iPhone 14 Max will actually feature the same internal CPU and processor as what's currently in the iPhone 13. So really the Pro models are the only ones that are going to get the faster CPU and internal chips, making the 13, interestingly, I think even more of a promising buy for people who are going to get the 14 baseline anyway. At that point, you're getting the same chip and processing power, maybe slightly different cameras and certain features, but really it makes a 13 or 13 Pro Max at that point, Pro or Pro Max, a promising buy given that they're going to go down in price after the 14's announced. So it's one of the first times we've seen like Apple kind of keep the same CPU and Apple Bionic chip and only offer it in the Pro models. But that being said, this chip is still great and it's still going to do a lot of people fine, and they won't really notice that. But nonetheless, it is something to consider if you're buying those baseline models. All right, moving on, let's talk about another Pro product that is being announced, and that is that of the Apple Watch Pro. While we're expected to see the Series 8 announcement, the big discussion is around that of Apple Watch Pro, a product line that they're looking to introduce for the Apple Watch to really improve on longevity and reliability, better feature set, and just, again, a more rigid, long-lasting Apple Watch for those who really use this for every day, use it for marathons, running, swimming, workouts, exercise, all this stuff, really extending a lot of those features that people already love about the Apple Watch and just adding onto it. The Apple Watch Pro is expected to get an improved design of a larger screen, expected to be around 46 to 47 millimeters, which as an avid watch wearer, that's a pretty big watch face, especially for a smartwatch. But that bigger screen will mean better battery life, and I think that's one of the more promising things. The more and more, especially for something that people are using quite literally daily on their wrist, the less you have to charge it, and the more use case you get out of it, the better. So the better battery life for the Apple Watch Pro will definitely be a nice improvement. Of course, improvements across the board in terms of sensors. One notable sensor that is rumored to be being integrated and a lot of people are excited about are body temperature sensors to tell your body temperature, whether that's for working out or for things like potential emergencies like heat exhaustion or what have you. And from there's also going to be talks about, like I said, the improved design and display. There's talks about a dedicated button being integrated on the left-hand side of the Apple Watch Pro to allow for programmable functions and just kind of custom actions for workouts and whatnot, which some people are a fan of. So again, this is a product that's going to be for those people who are already using the Apple Watch heavily and really just want that little bit more extra features and functionalities out of it. And just something that's going to be a little bit bigger, better, longer lasting, and as a result, definitely going to reflect in the price. It's expected that the Apple Watch Pro is probably going to come in around $900, potentially more depending on the model you get. But again, this is for those power users of the device who are already using it for extended use cases and whatnot. Now, moving into a product that I personally am a big fan of, and one of my favorite products of Apple's release in the last couple of years, and that is AirPods. These are my AirPods Pro. The AirPods Pro 2 are expected to be announced at Apple's event, and this is long overdue. These AirPods Pro are my second pair after losing my first pair, and even this case and AirPods have drastically lost battery life in the time that I've owned them. So definitely looking forward to an improvement on the product. AirPods Pro 2 are expected to integrate a new H2 chip. The H2 chip is kind of what drives all the connectivity and the wireless sync and kind of ecosystem that is in a lot of Apple's audio products right now, whether it's the AirPods Pro Max, their Beats line of headphones, or of course the traditional AirPods headphones. The H2 chip is going to improve audio quality, signal, and potentially introduce what some people are rumoring and talking about, Apple lossless support, which will be interesting because I don't know quite how they're going to do that over this kind of wireless technology. I think Sony's probably the closest who's gone, to integrating some sort of lossless wireless scenario here. But nonetheless, audio improvements across the board are always nice to see. Improved battery life is expected in these AirPods Pros too. And then notably, the feature that's actually getting updated in these AirPods Pro is the case. The case is expected to have an all-new design that's going to feature Find My support, so you can actually use and see where your case is on Find My on Apple's kind of loss tracking network. This is really important because previously you can do it with the AirPods individually, but not the actual case, surprisingly enough. And they're going to be integrating a speaker grill and a small tiny speaker into the actual case itself to use for pinging and tracking it when you can't find it, when you lose it in your backpack or house or what have you. Again, I know this sounds like a small little thing, but it's definitely a nice quality of life update. I tend to misplace these all the time, unfortunately. And again, it's going to be nice to have that, to be able to find it just a little bit more easier when it comes down to it. So yeah, Apple AirPods Pro 2. Outside of that, we're expected to see better resistance, IP resistance, water, and whatnot, to protect it for specific use cases, similar to the Apple Watch Pro for the users who are really using these heavily on a day-to-day basis. And the more resistance they are to elements and sweat and what have you, the better. There's also expected improvements across the sensors, like in-ear sensors and in-ear monitoring, as well as hopefully the noise cancellation getting some tweaks, even though this does a really good job as is. Again, no complaints across the board on this. Definitely much needed updates and upgrades to an already very popular product line. Now, last but not least, I want to talk about a product that is going to be potentially announced at this event that is completely out of left field for Apple, and for those of you who haven't really been following the space, is Apple's Reality Pro headset, is what they're dubbing it right now. And the rumor mills are judging this off of trademarks Apple has filed, but essentially this is a mixed headset experience, or mixed reality as they tend to call it, meaning very similar to like a la Google Glass or Snapchat's shades that they released not that long ago. This is like an AR, augmented reality, and VR, virtual reality based headset that Apple is expected to announce their first iteration of. What this is going to look like, what this is even going to be marketed towards, I'm really curious to see. There's these goggle-like designs, there's these glasses-like designs that people have put out there, but nothing is really concrete. And we all know, and it's been very evident, that Apple's been interested in this space. Apple's definitely put time, research, and money into this space, even from the side of, you can see it in their iPhone support for AR products and the LiDAR sensor and whatnot, to even integrating in things like iPads and whatnot. But now having an actual dedicated product to kind of tie all of that in is going to be interesting. And how Apple actually markets this device and who it's for will be even more interesting. Is it going to be a lifestyle product? Is it going to be geared towards gamers? Is it going to be geared towards everyday use? I really want to see how Apple kind of spins this, because this is a product that Apple's never really truly entered the space in, and it's very rare that Apple enters a brand new market in terms of, you know, their consumer products. And this, by all means, will be a consumer product, but definitely on the higher end. It's going to be a first generation product in a completely, I won't say untested space, but a space that's not fully fleshed out. Obviously, you have companies like Meta and Facebook really pushing the ball for this space, and I agree from a technology enthusiast standpoint, there's a use case and a future in AR and VR, but for a company of Apple and their size and magnitude to come into this space is going to be really, really interesting, and I think it's going to be the dark horse product that I'm really interested to see. In terms of what the actual specs are rumored to be, and this is highly coveted at the moment, I think there's talks about it being potentially a 4K OLED display, having support for eye tracking, hand control gestures, and with all of that, a pretty price point. We're expected to see this product to be upwards of $2,000+. So this is definitely not a product for the everyday consumer. This is purely like power users who are interested in a very early first generation product that is likely not going to be perfect, you know, given that it's Apple's first attempt at this. But given Apple's nature in the world and the way they've been able to kind of integrate products, introduce products, and kind of be a trendsetter, whether it was the iPod and you know, the kind of synonymous white headphones that came with that, the iPhones, and when that really revolutionized the smartphone market, MacBooks, they've always been more of a status symbol than anything, the products that they offer, and I'm going to be interested to see how they market and deploy these Reality Pro, whatever they call them, headsets, glasses, to the mainstream, and if it's a product that they just get a first generation out of and they decide to integrate it elsewhere, or something that they continue to kind of push out down the road. This is what I'm most excited for. Whether or not I'll be picking one up is yet to be seen, but I am most excited to see what this kind of brings to the space and how it pushes the entire space forward as a whole. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of stuff addressed there, a lot of things to unpack and expect in this upcoming event. We're only a couple of days away. Love to hear your thoughts and opinions. What are you going to be upgrading? What are you going to be grabbing? What are you going to be passing on? For me personally, I'm going to be updating my iPhone as I do every year after year, just to kind of get the upgrade and give my two cents and thoughts and opinions on the latest and greatest iPhone out there. I will certainly be picking up a pair of AirPods Pro 2 without question. Outside of that, I'll probably skip on the Apple Watch Pro, to be honest, just because I trend towards more of like everyday watches and tend to switch those up pretty often, and really have put my smart tracking and health tracking things into things like an Oura fitness ring, just because that's more easier to kind of wear on a day-to-day basis for my lifestyle. Lastly, again, this Apple Reality Pro VR AR headset is going to be for me, the product to watch. Whether or not I decide to actually get it down the road, we'll see. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, it's always fun to kind of dive back to the rumor mills and talk a lot about the upcoming tech that we may or may not see. And I hope you enjoyed it. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Like this video if you enjoyed. Consider subscribing for future content, because we will be covering these products down the road. And as always, thanks a lot for watching.